The Crimson Cloak. A Gothic retelling of Little Red Riding Hood. Chapter 1, The Forest That Breathed. The village crouched at the edge of the hollow wood like a candle afraid of its own flame. In daylight it passed for ordinary, stone cottages with moss-soft roofs, a crooked bell tower forever leaning toward the wind, a market square where the cobbles remembered the scurry of errands. But even on the brightest noon, every gaze slid back to the tree-lean, where shadow met doorstep without the courtesy of a meadow between. The forest was older than the names people used for it. Bark folded into frowns. Branches knit so tightly the sky had to squeeze through in narrow shards. The villagers said the wood had a breath. Stand still long enough and you could feel it, slow in, slow out, counting your heartbeats for you. Elira did not wait for other things to count her heartbeats. She counted them herself. Small and straight-backed, she had the look of someone listening for music no one else quite heard. Her hair was the color of darkened chestnut, her eyes, when she forgot to be solemn, flashed like water where a brook shrugged off shadow. But the village remembered her for the cloak, crimson, hooded, stitched to fall just so. In sun it was brave red, under moon it discovered deeper shades, as if night kept a private vocabulary for scarlet. Her grandmother had sewn it when Elira was little. Needle-pricked thumbs, lavender oil, a voice humming, colors are promises. Choose one you can keep. After that, Elira kept the cloak the way sailors keep a chart. She wore it to the well and the chapel and, when she could, just beyond the birch that marked the boundary. Children dared each other to tap that birch and run. Elira didn't dare, she simply walked, careful, respectful, neither swaggering nor cringing. The first time she saw the lights, she was 7, trailing a fern's edge with one finger. The glow wasn't in the fern but in the air, pinpricks as faint as breath on glass, gathering wherever shadow thickened, in the cradle of a lifted root, the seam between stones, the thorn of a bramble. Blink and they persisted. Look right at them and they slipped shyly aside, then hovered back, as if they preferred being seen from the corner of an eye. She learned not to speak of them. Her mother, Maris, folded worries the way she folded linens. The market boys whittled their knives to nervous points. Even her grandmother only said, "There are more things in these trees than leaves," then, more gravely, "The wood blesses and takes. Mind which you ask of it." On the morning our story begins, silence arrived early and never quite left. Crows forgot to quarrel. Dogs mislaid their opinions. The bell rope tangled itself, looking innocent. Maris glanced at the window the way you look at a door you're sure you locked. "Elira," she said at last, and the girl straightened from gutting plums. "Your grandmother is ill." Tomas knocked and came back pale as milk. "Take bread, cheese, and feverfew. The path only." She packed a willow basket, then tied Elira's cloak under her chin, thumbs brisk but gentle. "If the trees lean." "They always do," Elira said, smiling a little. "You know what I mean. The wolves are roaming early. They always were, according to the village. Early, bold, clever. Warnings change their clothes and repeat themselves." Still, Elira nodded. Outside, neighbors pretended at calm and gave her thin blessings as she passed. At the first birch, the wood regarded her. Its patience felt like law. The air tasted of iron and sap and something old that might have been sorrow. The lights pricked into being, 4, 7, 3, they liked odd numbers, and arranged themselves along her periphery. Fair terms, Elira told the path. She stepped under the canopy. The wood exhaled. Paths are agreements more than lines. This one kept its side, shells and leaf meal held firm underfoot, low growth edged the way with old sunlight. The trees kept their counsel. Elira passed familiar markers, a stump scored into a checkerboard, a moss-soft wall that had forgotten it was built, the millstone sunk in a pool whose mirror held a glittering upside-down world. She did not look into it. She counted, 1 2 1 2, so the wood wouldn't lend her a rhythm of its own. Do lacquered tracks at a bend. Not human. For toes, broad pad, claws biting deep where the soil softened. Wolf, yes, but larger than any print by the slaughter hook. The lights bunched over the mark and wavered. Not warning, recognition. Familiar, and not in a comforting way. Right, Alira said, and went on. The air grew colder where it always did. Between the yews, tunnel, charm of wintergrass brittle but unbroken, then out to a brief view of the crooked tower on the far side of the wood. A bright click across its windows meant Dr. Fenwick was awake, tinkering at his strange hours. It soothed her, thinking of any other mind cornered by odd work. The ground underfoot changed its mind about being wild and grew tamped, as if old boots had tutored it daily for years. A cottage was near. Alira's breath loosened, until the wood's breath paused. Not wind. Witness. The hush tightened until tiny noises, beetle click, water on stones, rang too clear. The lights drew close to her cheeks like a crown that wasn't there. Alira stood very still, counting 1 to 12 and back because her mother had warned her never to give the Hollow 13 of anything. The breath resumed. She walked. 2 corners more and the cottage hunched into view, roof like a cap pulled over tired eyes, lavender crisped under the eave. The door was shut. No hen scrabbled, no kettle fussed. Grandmother. She called. The wood made her voice smaller and returned it at once. Alira laid a palm on the door. Cool. Stagnant cool, like water left too long. The latch lifted under her hand. The door yielded. Ash slept in the hearth. A chair rocked once, as if remembering. The air smelled of rosemary and a trace of metal. The lights went first, whispering toward the corners. Alira stepped in. Behind her, the forest drew a long breath, and held it. Chapter 2, The Wolf That Wore Shadows. Something shifted where the candlelight didn't reach. A scrape dragged like claw on stone. Alira set her basket on the table with careful hands. Apples rolled to stillness. Bread thudded. She pulled the cloak close at her throat and turned. At first it seemed mist creeping in after rain. Then the shape thickened and bent the air around it. A wolf stepped out of the shadow. He was vast. Fur drank light, candle flames leaned away. His eyes weren't hunter gold but a drowned lantern white. They fixed on her with patience, as if the ending had been chosen already. He bowed. Not beast bow, but almost courtly, mockery threaded through grace. Alira, he purred. The voice curled into the cracks like smoke, soft, burning. Alira of the Crimson Cloak. You know my name. Her mouth was dry. I know the taste of it, he said. Teeth flash. Names cling to marrow. Yours is as red as your cloth. Why are you here? He paced nearer without sound. Only his shadow made noise, a hush rasp, stone on stone. Because the Hollow wood keeps its bargains. Once in a while, it offers something rare. Not meat. Not bone. Something brighter. His lantern eyes flared. The sparks that follow you. Fireflies. Guardians. Neither. Remnants. Trapped souls. You are their keeper. When I swallow you, little light bearer, I swallow them. The sparks recoiled, flaring. His shadow pressed them back like flies against a pane. Alira's gaze flicked toward the corner mirror. The surface rippled, faint as disturbed water, and an old hand pressed against the glass from within. Familiar. Trembling. Her grandmother. The wolf followed her eyes and smiled wider. She tried to keep me from you. I let her linger because despair sweetens fear. Let her go, Alira said, though her voice shook. Run, the wolf replied gently. I will walk. I will follow. When your breath fails, I will devour you whole. He melted backward into the dark. His voice stayed, drifting like smoke. Run. Alira bolted. The door banged wide, then swung shut as if the forest closed it. The hollow wood met her with sound, brittle branch crack high above, roots groaning under soil, quick patter of unseen things just beyond the path. Awake. Watching. Her boots struck the earth. The sparks scrambled to her hood, 2 clinging to her shoulders, 3 darting ahead. Mist thickened into curtains. Behind her, no rush of paws, only steps slow and certain, tolling like a bell. The wolf walked. Alira, his voice drifted, the trees repeating it in low mimicry. Little spark keeper. Your light perfumes the dark. Do not run. Running seasons the flesh. She gasped numbers between breaths, 1, 2, 3, 4, refusing the wood's own counting. The path twisted. Thorns clawed her sleeves. Branches tugged her hood. The forest didn't guide, it folded her inward. A whisper brushed her ear. Not wolf. Not grandmother. Older. Stay. Her knees softened. She caught herself against moss-slick bark. The sparks wavered like candle stubs. Steps drew nearer, not hurried, inevitable. She stumbled on, cloak heavy with dew. The sparks flared once, bright enough to pull her to a narrow break. She plunged through, branches whipping her face, tearing cloth. The path opened to a clearing. Mist lifted. Half-moon hung blade sharp. For one heartbeat she believed she was safe, until she saw the eyes. Dozens. Pale, lantern-white, waking one by one in the tree lean. The wolf stepped into the moonlight, a grin splitting the night. You thought there was only one of us. Chapter 4, The Circle of Lantern Eyes. The clearing breathed with her. Alira backed until her boots touched where the path should have been. There was no path now, only trees in a ring, and in their woven dark, eyes. Shapes slid between trunks. Wolves, but not as hunters told it. Smoke poured into skin. Legs too long, heads cocked too sharp. Lantern eyes. Ribs like cage bars. The sparks trembled, small light against heavy shadow. Growls braided together and vibrated in her ribs. The vast wolf tilted his head. Do you know why you taste so sweet? He whispered. Not blood. Not bone. The spark. The hollow wood fattens it in you. He lowered himself, shoulders rippling. When you fall, your grandmother follows. Slowly. Mist curled cold round Alira's ankles. A wolf snapped. Another pawed earth. A third's tongue lolled. She drew her cloak tight and breathed, God, guide me. The sparks kindled, a faint sting in the dark. The ring shrank back for a beat. The leader snarled. Ah. Clever little flame. But sparks burn out. Together, the circle lunged. Chapter 5, The Thorn Path. Alira dropped low and hurled herself toward the narrowest gap, between 2 wolves with rib cages like broken doors. Jaws snapped. Teeth grazed cloth. A strip of red fluttered into mist. The forest exploded, paws and claws, shadow bodies, eyes like drowned lanterns. Alira ran. The sparks sprinted ahead. Roots clawed her boots. The howls behind rose in a chant. They weren't killing, they were hurting. The sparks arrowed toward a bramble corridor, dense, cruel. Wolves could not pass unshredded. Alira could try. She dove. Thorns caught hair and sleeve. Pain stitched her arms. She crawled, teeth clenched, cloak ripping to ribbons. A muzzle forced into the hedge, shrieking when a thorn gouged its snout. She scrambled faster. She tumbled into another clearing, bleeding at knees and palms. Quiet again, too quiet. The sparks pointed sideways, not back, not forward, toward a crooked shape blinking pale blue light between trunks. Dr. Fenwick's tower. Hope and dread nodded together. The villagers called him mad. But madness was better than Jaws. Take me to him, she whispered, and the sparks led on. Chapter 6, The Tower of Odd Inventions. The tower loomed taller with every step, iron bands cinching patched stone, timber braces like splints on a giant's limb. Pipes coughed faint blue steam, high windows glowed too sharp for flame. Howls rolled out behind her, one, then another, then many. The pack had bled itself passing the brambles but had not broken. Lantern eyes relit at the tree-lean. Alira ran harder. The iron-bound door filled her world. She pounded. Dr. Fenwick. Please, open. Bolts snapped back, clattering. The door groaned inward. Blue glare spilled out. A white-haired man peered down, a wild face under cracked goggles, a contraption strapped to his chest coughing sparks. What in heavens? Then he saw them, wolves, scores of them, spilling from mist like the sea's own hunger. Alira stumbled past him. Shut it. He slammed the door. Bolts thudded home. Claws raked iron. The tower shivered. Dust sifted from beams. Alira collapsed to the floor, breath tearing, sparks orbiting in a dim halo. Fenwick stared at the lights, at the bowing door, back at Alira. He crept sideways across his soot-streaked face. Well, he muttered, almost delighted, the Hollowood has brought me my experiment. Chapter 7, Sparks and Shadows. The door juddered. Fangs scraped stone. Wolves screamed when Fenwick's machine spat a bolt through the seams, ozone and burned fur scorched the air. The pounding never stopped. They always return, he said, hands flying over brass and copper, flipping levers, cranking a wheel until the tower groaned like an organ swallowing air. Do you know what they are? Wolves, Alira said, hugging her torn cloak. Failures of light, he snapped. Cast-off remnants from an ancient bargain. Shadows fed until they grew teeth. And you, he jabbed a shaking finger, you carry their opposite. Sparks. Fragments of hope the forest tried to swallow and could not. The lights flickered brighter, as if his words fit. Stone cracked at the jam, bolts screamed. A pale claw speared through. Lightning from Fenwick's chest piece blasted it to ash. More claws pushed in. More howls. They will tear us apart, Alira gasped. I will end them, Fenwick said. But his eyes weren't on the door. They were on her. Chapter 8, The Madman's Bargain. All my years, he breathed, stepping close, I've tried to bottle it, hope, light, spirit. Cages of glass, prayers to fire, commands to storm. Nothing holds. And here you stand, holding it as if it were nothing. Alira backed toward the stair. The sparks frayed around her face, uneasy. You said they want to devour me. Because you are the last light they can't digest. But what if I swallowed it first? His grin cracked. Not to eat you. To harness you. With your spark bound to my machine, I could unmake them. The forest made its wolves, I will unmake them. All I need. He lunged, coils hissing, blue arcs snapping. Is you. The lights shrieked and whipped away from his grasp. The tower shook under another slam. Inside the hollow wood, every bargain had teeth. Alira met his hunger with a truth heavy enough to bruise. Chapter 9, The Clever Flame. You don't want to save anyone, she said, voice steady despite the tear on her cheek. You want to be right. You've spent your life building cages for light. When it slipped through your fingers, you blamed the world. You don't want to free us from wolves, you want to master hope. Fenwick flinched as if struck. His machine faltered, coughing sparks. In the hollow wood, truth weighed like iron. It bent metal. Alira ripped her cloak wide. The sparks poured into its folds until the fabric glowed like banked embers. She snapped it forward. Light leapt from the hem and lashed his contraption. Coils screamed. Glass burst. Blue fire spidered across brass and bit its maker. Fenwick flew backward into stone. Smoke coughed out. The door, at last, splintered. Lantern eyes flooded the gap. You clever child, he rasped from the floor, half smiling even in defeat. But clever won't stop them. Alira faced the pack. Sparks ringed her, small suns angry at a storm. Not if I let them choose the rules, she said. This time, I choose. Chapter 10, Feast of Shadows. The wolves spilled in, a tide of shadow with teeth. Claws ripped floorboards. Eyes burned white. Alira didn't run. She lifted her chin and whispered into the hush, you want to feed? Then feed. The sparks pulsed, then blazed, until her cloak looked cut from living fire. The wolves lunged. She flung the cloak open. Light stormed into their gaping maws. They swallowed greedily. For a breath it looked like victory. Then hunger showed its curse. They could not stop. Each spark only widened the hollow inside. Bellies glowed, ribs lit like cages of coals. They snapped at each other, devouring shadows and shadow flesh alike. The tower shook under the frenzy. One great wolf gulped a dozen sparks, his chest blazed, he howled, and burst into ash and glare. One by one the pack followed, hunger eating hunger, light tearing shadow apart. Silence dropped like a curtain. Ash fell. Scorch marks smoked on stone. The sparks that remained drifted back to Alira, dim but alive. She trembled. Fenwick dragged himself upright, contraption a ruin. You've done it, he coughed. Broken their hunger. No, Alira said, voice low. I fed it to death. Outside the shattered door, the hollow wood exhaled, long, slow, like something large and unseen had watched and was thinking. Chapter 11, The Hollow Wood Remembers. Ash drifted down like black snow, catching in Alira's hair and the tatters of her cloak. The lights hovered in a thin ring, faint from what they'd given and still unwilling to leave her. Fenwick leaned on the wall, laughter cracked and jagged. The girl in the red cloak, the one who starved the wolves by feeding them. A tale for the ages. Alira's eyes, faintly bright with what lived in her now, turned to him. Not a tale, she said softly. A warning. Mist thickened just beyond the door. From far off, so soft she might have imagined it, came a sound, a howl. Then another. And another. Not near, not yet, but enough to rattle marrow. Her grandmother's voice threaded through memory, the wood blesses and takes. Mind which you ask of it. Alira stepped into the doorway. The forest breathed. Lantern eyes did not show, but other watching did. I know you're still hungry, she whispered to the dark. The wood answered with a silence that felt like listening. Then, far away, a low chorus rose and faded again. At first light she walked the path back to the cottage, the sparks guiding her hand to the mirror's black water. She flung what light she could and watched the glass shatter like thin ice. Her grandmother fell free, coughing, weeping, alive. Alira wrapped her in the crimson cloak and led her into morning. Behind them the trees stood very still, as if deciding something. The hollow would remembered. It would always remember. And Alira did, too. She wore the cloak, not as a brave color, but as a promise. She kept to the path when promises needed keeping and stepped off it when something small and bright trembled near the dark. Some would say she was the forest's protector. Others, its debt. Alira never argued. On certain nights, when the moon is knife-thin and the mist writes secret words between the trunks, travelers swear they see a pale glow threading the wood like a lantern without a hand. Sometimes they hear a child steady counting. Sometimes a single howl answers, closer than it should be. And always, if you stand too long at the edge where shadow meets doorstep, you can feel the hollow wood breathing. Slow in. Slow out. Not hungry enough yet, but remembering.